All right, so thank you everyone for coming here today for this important announcement for Grand Forks and the Regional District of Kootenay Boundary. To get things started today, my name is Andrew Hopkins. I'm Media Relations Advisor with the Canadian Red Cross, and I'd like to introduce Parliamentary Secretary Jennifer Rice. She is Parliamentary Secretary for BC for Emergency Preparedness.
So, facing this way, but the people are this way. This is a little awkward, so I will try and project as best as I can. Thank you. Good morning. Woo. Thanks everyone for coming out today. We certainly didn't expect this turnout. Thank you to the mayor and thank you for everyone for hosting me. Thanks to the Wooden Spoon for also making this space available and allowing us to intrude on your business operations.
And thank you for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'd also like to acknowledge Linda Larson, who isn't able to be here today. She would want to be, but she has been a tireless advocate for the Kootenay Boundary region, and I would like to just extend my gratitude towards her. This past spring, the worst flood in recent memory washed over and through Grand Forks and the communities of the Regional District of Kootenay Boundary, damaging people's homes, businesses, farmlands, and entire neighborhoods. You know this. It challenged first responders, community officials, and displaced the people who call this place home. At the height of flooding, over 1,600 addresses, more than 3,000 people were evacuated from their homes in the Regional District of Kootenay Boundary alone. Hundreds of homes and businesses have been damaged by floodwaters, and it may take years to recover. This is my third visit to Grand Forks since the flood. In May, I arrived in town just after the first wave of flooding with another expected crest on the way that thankfully didn't happen. No cars were allowed downtown yet, but small businesses and individuals were gradually trickling back into the downtown core here. I overheard things like, "It's all gone," "We were lucky," "Is there anything I can do to help?" Outside a small business, and I don't know who this woman is, but if she's here today, I'd love to talk to you. But this woman was hanging a big poster, a brown paper poster, and in huge letters said, "Thank you." These experiences will be forever ingrained in my mind. Since then, since that time, we have, the provincial government, we have formed a provincial recovery team to specifically work with Grand Forks. Our provincial recovery team is working directly with the Boundary Flood Recovery Team to identify needs, to provide services, find funding sources, and long-term solutions. It's heart-wrenching to see the effects this flooding has had on this community, but it's also heartwarming to see how you've all come together. And at the heart of this community are small businesses like the one we're at today. Small businesses in British Columbia are critical to keeping our town's economies moving, and I know the small business community here is struggling. We provided funding to the Boundary Flood Recovery Team to undertake local economic assessments, which have led to a recommendation for more small business support. I realize that recovery has been hard. We've heard your concerns, and for many, there's still a long ways to go. That's why, as an immediate boost, we're providing up to $2.9 million to help small businesses right here in Grand Forks and in the Regional District of Kootenay Boundary that were affected by this terrible flooding. This support is being provided in response to locally identified needs and will be distributed through the Canadian Red Cross, which has continued to be a key partner through the recovery process. Business owners have already received an immediate $1,500, and this additional funding will provide eligible businesses up to $18,500 with the potential for further assistance for eligible businesses who need it. Throughout the recovery process, we've supported residents through programs such as HEAP, or the Household Emergency Assistance Program, which is a first of its kind in British Columbia. And these funds are part of a helping hand we're extending to small businesses so that they can be a strong part of helping this community find a new path forward. Recovery doesn't happen fast enough. I know that, you know that. And it's challenging to put lives and communities back to the way they were before the flood or before the disaster. And recovery isn't solely about infrastructure and damage. Recovery includes supports for individuals, local economies, social supports, and adapting to a changing environment, and building back better to build more resilient communities. I can assure you we will continue to listen to your concerns and find ways that we can work together to move forward. That's why Premier John Horgan has asked me to serve as the provincial government's key point of contact for Grand Forks recovery and to report directly to him on our efforts. I'm happy to take on this role and to provide a single point of contact for your concerns and to keep government efforts coordinated and informed. Since the wildfires and floods of 2017, followed by those in 2018, we've come to understand how complex recovery really is. We're working to improve our systems to better support recovery. The Government of British Columbia is shifting from an emergency management program that is orientated mainly towards planning for response to disaster to one with an added focus on disaster risk reduction and recovery. The path to recovery is one that we will walk together. I want to assure the people of Grand Forks that we will be traveling this path with them. They can count on our support today and in the years ahead. Thank you.
So thank you so much to Parliamentary Secretary Rice for coming here with news of this funding. I'd now like to introduce Alicia Dempsey, who is also with the Canadian Red Cross. She is our Emergency Management Director for the province of BC, and she has some more to say about today's announcement.
Thanks, Andrew. That does feel awkward, doesn't it? Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for Parliamentary Secretary Rice for this great announcement. We're so pleased to be here today with the generous support of the BC government to help support those small businesses that have been impacted by the flooding that happened last spring. The flood season had a huge impact on the Kootenay-Boundary Regional District, and obviously people are still feeling the effects, and they will be feeling them for quite some time. People are working hard on the road to recovery, and they're hoping to come back stronger. And this is our goal as well, is to help support you in coming back stronger, being more resilient, and being a community that supports and helps one another. We're so pleased to be a part of being able to provide this second phase of support for individuals and businesses. And we're looking forward to working with this resilient community in the months and weeks ahead. We know that over 100 businesses have been impacted and hurt by the flooding last spring. This second phase of assistance we're announcing today will be available for items such as insurance losses, deductibles, minor repairs, cleanup, and equipment losses that small businesses have experienced from the flooding. The assistance amounts will be determined on a case-by-case basis, and they're meant to help the needs of impacted small businesses so they can recover alongside their communities. Red Cross will be providing more information about the application in the weeks to come, and small business owners will be able to go online and find out what type of eligibility requirements are on there. You can find out more information by going to redcross.ca/gethelp, and it's up on our website right now, all the different eligibility requirements. And so we'll be working with you, as I said, and providing more information in the weeks to come. I want to thank the Government of BC for so generously funding this very important work in the community, and we look forward to helping support you further. Thank you.
So thank you, Alicia. And next up is Brian Taylor, the Mayor of Grand Forks. Definitely important to hear from the Mayor today, an important day for the community and moving forward in recovery.
Yes, I'd like to thank a number of people who have been involved in this. Certainly Community Futures, Jennifer's played a big role in identifying the fact that the community really needed this kind of boost, not only economically, but from the standpoint of hope and moving forward. This is going to be a really exciting time to see what we can do with this kind of support from the government. A big thanks to the regional district and the flood recovery team and the city staff as well. It all played a role in putting this together. I think without the identification of this as a critical problem, we would have seen no action. So I appreciate the fact that we've all got that message clearly to government, including Linda Larson, our MLA, that we are saying to government, this is really going to help us, and part of our first step moving forward is to get our business community healthier. Thank you very much.
And next I'd like to invite Jennifer Wetmore up here. Brian alluded to the amazing work that she has done as part of the team lead for Grand Forks Economic Recovery and advocating for small businesses throughout this community. So Jennifer, thank you very much.
Hi everybody, it is a little awkward, this setup. Good morning, and thank you Parliamentary Secretary Jennifer Rice, Ms. Dempsey, and Mayor Taylor for being here today, and thank you also to Vice Chair Grace McGregor in the corner over there from the Regional District of Kootenay Boundary. I look forward to hearing and learning more details about this exciting announcement over the days to come. However, at this time I would like to thank the Boundary business community for allowing me and our organization to tell your story. Thank you for trusting the process, for being willing to participate, for being open and honest about the economic and emotional impact that this event has had and is having on your family and your business. The situation here on May 10th and the days following was devastating, and we will deal with it for many years to come. However, I feel that we must recognize that through this pain has come a renewed appreciation for each other and our community. Just a minute. This is hard to say, actually. I see across the boundary as a whole an appreciation for each other and a willingness to take care of each other that has carried us through this and will continue to do so. You all deserve recognition for this. Yes, there is much work to do, and we will continue to tell our story to the provincial and federal government and anyone else who can help in an effort to seek assistance and support for all the sectors of our business community throughout this region. As always, if you feel that I can help, please phone me at my office, 250-442-2722, and as I learn more details about this announcement, I will share that information. A final thanks to the province of BC and Red Cross for this announcement today, to the British Columbia Economic Development Association for helping us to engage with all of you and advocate for assistance, and of course to my organization, management, and their board for allowing me to take this work on. Thank you.
So thank you to Jennifer, and thank you to everybody today for coming out for this announcement. I can say that the resiliency that your community continues to show, it helps to inspire all of us at the Canadian Red Cross, and we are certainly excited to continue the work with you on your recovery path. So thank you everybody for coming out today. Just give us one moment on that. First, I want to say thank you again to the Wooden Spoon. Can we all give them a hand for supporting and helping us today? And first off, we've got, I think, questions from the media initially, and then we can move to potentially, will there be some opportunity after for people to meet directly?
Do you want to do the people first? I feel like it makes more sense. Yeah. Yeah. We'll hear from. We'll have to follow up after.
Okay. All right.
Is someone going to be able to facilitate?
Well, you had the first question then. Okay.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
Do you know who I am?
I feel like I know you from somewhere else.
You met me on our riverbank.
Muriel.
Muriel. And you've got, how many emails from me?
Quite a few emails.
Quite a few, right.
Quite a few of us here.
Yeah. So I will be, I'd like to talk with you later about our particular situation. I'm quite disappointed you didn't announce that the South Ruckle Riverbank was going to get fixed right away. But I'll go talk with you later. But what I want to talk about right now, the question I've got right now is what is happening up in the watershed? That is going to be an emergency for us in the future, again, no doubt about it. So it definitely relates to your, it's not a portfolio, but I'm not sure, your department, Emergency BC. And we've got forest fires and clear-cut logging, especially clear on south-facing slopes, clear-cut logging. Is anything being done to fix or stop that?
Okay, so Ron Burleson, you're coming up here. So we have some technical people here with us, and Graham, Dave, I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, but Ron, you want
Surely
to?
tell me that you connect. You know what I mean?
Yes. So I'll answer a couple of things. So one, this was an announcement for small businesses, and I understand your anxiety around getting some of the in-stream works mitigated before the next spring freshet. I feel confident that we will have things in place, but they're not happening fast enough for your terms, and I'm completely sympathetic. It is a long process, and I know that when you live here and you're on the ground and you don't see the physical environment changing or improving, that it feels like we're not doing anything. But there's a tremendous amount of work in the background. There's a lot of permits to get, there's funding to secure, and so all that is finally coming into place. And so I'm optimistic that, while it's not by your timeline, Muriel, that we will have things in place that will give you some confidence.
Okay, because I may not have finished emailing you.
Ron, did you want to?
Can I get in front of the microphone?
I didn't realize there was a microphone. So just to add to your question on watershed, sorry, I'm Ron Burleson. I'm the Executive Director for Recovery for Emergency Management BC.
Yes, we've met before.
Yes, and I know you've emailed me too.
Yes.
So just in terms of that bigger question around watersheds and I think you mentioned forest practices. Certainly with what Parliamentary Secretary Rice said about the shift towards disaster risk reduction as part of our mandate, the province recently adopted something called the Sendai Framework, which is an international standard around disaster risk reduction. We still have to interpret how we apply that broadly to government's work, and obviously we'd be working with all ministries, including the Ministry of Forests. But beyond that, I can't speak to specifics around watershed things outside the boundary here. If that's what you're asking.
Well, specifically because it comes down every year, once right from the house, even closer to my house this year than it used to. And I just encountered something really interesting online this morning about planting grass. So I know our son was a tree planter for 3 years. He wasn't planting grass seed up there. Can grass seed not be cast up there, up in the watershed, amongst the trees? It will hold water. Anything to help for the next few years.
I'm not sure if it will or won't. What I can say is the hydrology work that we've been able to provide funding for through the boundary flood team and needs to consider that, and we're all learning about what's going to work for the environment here.
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
Sorry, just trying to speak into the microphone, but also address
I
that
don't
way.
think the microphone's on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean that is ongoing work that.
So I'm going to be firing these ideas off now to the ministry with a long name.
Okay.
And maybe Jennifer will get a copy as well.
Okay.
And but who am I going to address these to there? Is it going to be specifically to you, or is there a broader?
We can start there, and maybe in the interest of hearing other questions, you and I can take this offline.
I can understand that. Yeah.
So thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi,
Hi there, Kate Sailors from the Grand Forks Gazette. I'm just wondering, so we're heading into the Christmas season now, and for a lot of small businesses, Christmas is the critical time of year, perhaps even second to tourist season, which obviously was decimated this year. When will businesses start to actually receive this funding? Like, do you have a timeline on when they might get a check?
So bring Alicia from the Canadian Red Cross.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, we do have the information up on our website right now. We're just in the process of developing a plan for when we will be in community. So we will be holding some community information sessions around what the programming looks like and then how to fill out application forms. It'll be dependent on a few factors, of course, around how quickly people can get applications in to when money can actually be put into accounts. But we are looking at a very expedited process for this. I don't have exact timeframes for you, but we will be in community before Christmas, I can assure you that.
Okay, so business owners should look out for a community information session to help them navigate this process?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
Can you give a bit more detail about what exactly will be covered or what will be eligible?
Yeah, so individuals will be able to fill out, for those of you that have already done it, you've been able to access $1,500. It was a very kind of quick application form. Everyone received the same amount. This will be a little bit different. It'll be done on a case-by-case basis. It'll be dependent, it'll ask for information. There'll be a list of information it'll ask for, and it will take and determine what the losses were. So depending on what you provide in your application, provide as much information as you can to help us then determine the amounts of assistance that you'll actually be eligible for. I'm like looking at both of you.
Follow-up question then. So a lot of businesses at this point have made the decision not to reopen, which is really unfortunate. And yet $18,000 is a pretty significant amount of money if they were eligible for, say, the maximum. And I think for a lot of businesses that would have helped sooner. Do you have any comment on that?
If they are considering reopening, please do apply for the program. They may have made a decision not knowing what was coming in the future, and so I would highly recommend, if there is any consideration that they would like to reopen, absolutely put in an application form, and that may change their decision.
Is it any businesses? Is it just downtown businesses? Is it people that have been hit by tourism? Like, what's the criteria?
It's any businesses, any small business that has been impacted by the event from the Kootenay Boundary Regional District. It can be home-based, it can be commercial. There are some requirements that for the program needing to have 50 or less employees, and some other factors. As I said, there's actually a whole list of criteria on there. If you have received the initial $1,500, you are absolutely eligible for this next phase. If you missed the initial $1,500, please do put an application in, because you'll be eligible for the $1,500 plus the additional assistance now. So it's to make sure that everybody is eligible and can access the assistance.
The flooding happened months ago. What took so long to get help to these businesses?
Like I said, this is a brand new place for us to be in government. We had unprecedented floods and fires from 2017 that we're still managing right now. This is actually quite, I know that's not reassuring to the businesses here, but this is actually, for a government process, quite speedy. And as I was saying earlier about our changing our framework, we're walking hand in hand with Grand Forks, and Grand Forks has agreed, and the regional district agreed to be a partner with us to actually develop a recovery program that actually meets the needs of people, so that it is speedier, so that they don't have to go through what's happening here, which is a really long and slow process, not just for Grand Forks or the regional district of Kootenay Boundary, but for communities all across British Columbia that have been hit hard by fires and floods for the last 2 years.
There's a question over here.
Will loss of revenue or just physical loss?
There's a component of physical loss and a component around lost revenue. It's not to completely replace all lost revenue. I understand that couldn't quite get there. Yeah, and so some of it would be dependent on whether you have business interruption insurance or not as well. So some businesses will have had it, which would have covered the lost revenue. Others will not, and then that gets played into the case management of it.
So is it the loss for the 13 days we were evacuated, or the loss that we've incurred from the time of the event until now, because we're not fully functioning?
So in your application, put in the loss for the entire time. Yeah.
There's 2 questions here.
Okay. Gentleman, and then the woman in the back.
I realize this is for the downtown business, but there's a lot of businesses in Grand Forks that aren't in the downtown. And we seem to be pushed aside, and nothing is happening. When are we going to get some sort of relief or help?
This is for all businesses.
This is not for businesses in the downtown core. We're here today announcing this in the downtown core, but this is for different types of businesses.
Every time that Grand Forks comes on the news, it's all about the downtown. Crumbs, there's businesses all over this country that aren't in the downtown of Grand Forks, and they're suffering just as hard as what downtown is. I just want to see a little more outside of the downtown core recognized. Thank you.
Does this program include infrastructure losses for agriculture? Does the program include infrastructure losses for agriculture, land losses?
It's for any small business that's been impacted. So agribusiness. It's also for nonprofit organizations as well. So it's not just small business, but nonprofit organizations that may have been impacted by the event as well are eligible for assistance.
Should we say more on that one? Do you want to say a little bit more? Yeah.
So yeah, just to follow up on your question around agriculture, we are working with the Ministry of Agriculture right now. We're aware that there are some gaps in existing programming. We just haven't been able to line that up with today's announcement. So that's an ongoing piece, but we are working actively on that because we know there's some additional things that need to be done there.
So something separate for agriculture from Red Cross, but agriculture?
Potentially, yes. We're just not quite there yet. And so, certainly explore this program. But if there are other things, again, you can connect with me on that.
Just a follow-up question on that. When you were talking about the eligibility requirements, it sounded to me like you were referencing the eligibility requirements that are already existing within the DFA regulation. Am I correct? Because it's that regulation that excludes a lot of business losses. So if you're running with that same eligibility requirements, it may exclude the same people that don't qualify for DFA. So it just sounded like you were referencing that same test.
No, I wasn't. Actually, it's different than DFA eligibility requirements, or the Support Small Business Program that we have. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Are you expecting all of the $2.9 million to be given out? Because when you divide, if you cap businesses at $18,000 or $18,500, and that's assuming everybody gets the full $18,500, that means more than 150 businesses. Are you planning on giving 150 businesses $18,500? Or is this money part of another pool that also goes somewhere else in the province?
No, this money is specific for small business supports. This is in addition to the $13 million that the province has already provided for other types of recovery support here. It's like Alicia was saying, it's criteria based, so people might get up to 18.5, some might not get the full 18.5, and there is room for those that are eligible to get a little bit more than that 18.5. But those are specifics that I don't have the details right here, and Alicia probably doesn't have them with her right now either.
But is the province planning on giving $2.9 million to Grand Forks businesses, or is that just a cap?
Would be to the Red Cross for.
Yeah, so we will use the funds to the fullest extent possible.
Yeah.
So if all of the people apply and they receive the max amounts they can, and it's 2.9, then the whole 2.9 will go to the Kootenay boundary, businesses in the Kootenay boundary. So yeah, it's just hard to say exactly if the full fund will be subscribed to or not. And as Jennifer mentioned, there will be an additional top up. So say some people received the 18.5 and they still had additional losses, we'll be looking at another way in which to be able to fund and support beyond that.
It's on a case-by-case basis, and this is money specific for this region. This is not to be shared with other regions if that's what you're.
Well, no, it just seems like it doesn't seem like they'll probably say every business gets $18,500, and then the math doesn't really work out that well. So that's what I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a question. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm really happy you guys are here. It's progress in my mind, so I'm hopeful. Is there consideration about changing the DFA regulations for small business because it was so exclusive, at least the experience from Grand Forks?
So what I can say is that, as I was saying earlier, between unprecedented fires and floods in 2017 and 2018, we have really had to take a deep look internally about what response and recovery is going to look like for the province of British Columbia. The regulations haven't been updated since the 1990s, so we are doing a lot of work right now. So simultaneously, as we are focusing on recovery for Grand Forks, we are developing a recovery framework that we would use for the entire province for all types of emergencies. It also means looking at the Emergency Program Act. It looks at the DFA, the criteria, the amounts that are provided. So we're doing a lot of internal work right now to make the system better for the future.
Right. So I would just like to comment that one thing specifically for us, my family personally, and I think it was a very common experience, is my husband used to work at a job where he made a lot of money, and he quit that job long before the flood to work on our business. And we didn't get the DFA because of how much money he made at the previous job. And I know that that was a very common story along those lines. So my hope is that that will be one thing that is considered.
So we are doing the work. The Disaster Financial Assistance Program is designed to give people a helping hand. It is not designed to make people completely whole. I do think we'll see improvements, but we cannot make it exactly how it was
even
before.
just the helping hand. We didn't.
Right.
So, under eligibility, there are businesses here, for instance, at the end of this block, there's a building that, even though some of the businesses, at least one of the businesses in there, didn't have to evacuate and see any damage during the flood, they are going to have to move out while that building gets its floors redone. So they are going to start incurring losses from the flood, but 6, 7, 8 months later, are they going to be covered too?
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody impacted in any way, shape, or form that was a factor from the flood, absolutely put in an application. Yeah. And as I said, put in as much detail as you can in the application. It actually helps with determination much easier.
People are impacted whether water hit their home or their business or not. We understand businesses were shut down. I was here while the Tiger dams were right down these streets, and those that weren't impacted still weren't able to operate. So we understand that people have experienced loss here in many different forms.
Graham, just to follow up on this lady's comments, how was the $2.9 million number? Where did that come from?
Actually, that might be a Jennifer Whitmore answer.
So this doesn't come from a top down. This wasn't government saying, here, this is what you get. We provided funding for
there's the impact assessment.
We did assessment. Yeah. We provided funding for assessments to be done. Jennifer Whitmore was a part of that, understanding the local needs, and this was requested of us.
Okay, so it was a number we submitted to your department. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct.
It's based on the same BC Economic Development Association, the interviews with all the businesses to establish what the overall impacts were. It's in the same scale of request as that, using, I think, some slightly different math, but it's the same scale of request.
Did you want to add any further comment, Jennifer? Or?
Yeah, I mean, just to echo what Parliamentary Secretary has told you, you know that we talk to you, and we talk to you, and we talk to you again, and we continue to talk to you, which is frustrating at times, but that's part of the process that we need to do in order to do our due diligence and give BC Government and Red Cross the information they need. So yes, that information came from us. It was a projection, and it was based on what we heard from all of you across the boundary about the impact.
Your press release does say this is part of a plan, a part of the housing is part of this. Can you give us a general update on where we're at with housing, helping people out?
Actually, Mayor, did you want to speak to housing? The question is around housing.
What was the question again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it specifically.
Just a general, it says this is part of a 4-point plan. It says housing's part of this plan. I understand the emphasis today is on business, but where are you at with rehousing people?
We have the immediate housing response from our recovery team, but we're also looking at BC Housing putting 2 large developments in, one at 19th Street and the other close here at 2nd Street. Both of them approximately 50 units per building. We've been working closely with BC Housing to further planning on both those projects, and they're expecting to have them available by the September of this coming year. So we'll be looking at some kind of a bridge program getting from where we are now into the September of next year, where we intend to see those places open and ready for habitation.
What about people as we're heading into winter right now? Does everybody have a livable home?
There are some difficulties there. For the most part, the flood recovery group has covered a lot of that. We still have a core group of people out there that are not being offered a shelter, and we have a community group that will be convened fairly quickly to press BC Housing in terms of available funds for a program that would deal with the immediate housing needs as well as the bridge to the accommodation that will be available in the September of next year.
As mayor, do you think that the province has done enough to help these people over winter?
I think there's been fault on all sides here, and so I accept some of the fault for the community that, you know, dealing with the flood has left us in a position of not really responding clearly to that difficult group that are on the street, but that is happening as we speak. There will be a meeting pulled together, and our community will identify again in a bottom-up request to government. We expect to be given the same sort of supportive response.
Will you be talking about that today?
I'll be talking about it today, yes. We have actually spoken of this. Jennifer's personal interest in Grand Forks supersedes her legislative responsibilities. Thank you.
All right. Oh, so go ahead. Yes.
Will there be an appeal process for businesses if they're turned down for this funding, the same as they would for the
So the question was, will there be an appeal process
if businesses are turned down for this funding, the same as they would for the
Turned down. Anybody that applies and can show that there has been an impact will be receiving some financial assistance, absolutely. If there is a sense that it didn't actually meet the need, absolutely, then there can be there'll be a process and where you can request to have things further reviewed and looked into, absolutely. Yeah.
This is not a question, it's a comment. I, as a business owner that's been deeply impacted by this flood, am very grateful for all the work that all you people have done and are doing to help us out. And don't ever forget that, and please keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you to everyone.
There's a question over there at the side.
Okay, one more. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to clarify something about the 18.5. I worked with Linda on this, and she really needs credit for it. I'll tell you, she fought hard to get this money for us. But it's what was paid out to Williams Lake 2 years ago when they were closed down for a month because of fires, and that's what we used for the base. So it's nothing other than pie in the sky on that one, but that's why that particular number is that.
Yeah, so I think what she's saying is, yes, we're modeling this program off a program that we offered Williams Lake last year, or 2017 during wildfire season. Oh, okay, so two more and then we'll wrap up. Yeah.
This is a bit of a follow-up, but there was a question about particular circumstances, and we're hearing from you that the government's reevaluating response to disaster. Just asking on the behalf of these people who've been through it, there's an opportunity for them to give feedback in the process as the government comes up with their new process?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And how would that be done so they know?
I can speak to this. So, So we've already started discussions with Emergency Management BC and Forest Lands and Natural Resources Operations about what this recovery framework would look like. Over the near term, we're looking at some meetings with the staff and the local representatives that were directly involved in recovery and response here, and I think we might be looking at some public discussion about that. We've been hearing a lot from people about how this has worked and where the bumps and detours have really been challenging. But this is part of I don't want to steal your fire here, but part of a 2-year effort to actually update the Emergency Program Act on the part of the province, and that is listening to the concerns of those many communities affected over the last 2 years who have faced this kind of rough road. So we're really looking forward to kind of some short-term engagement and then some more opportunities next year. I don't know if you want to add anything to that. That's perfect. Right.
Could people submit something in writing? Will they have an opportunity if they feel the need for their particular circumstances?
Yeah, I mean, how would we recommend? You can reach out to myself. You can reach out to Ron, who is thankfully now our lead recovery person. He's an executive director for Recovery for Emergency Management BC.
But I'd recommend that you work through your local government, and then we'll be coordinating, because we're actually working with other communities in British Columbia as well, to make sure that we're addressing the problems, not coming in with a theoretical solution.
I think that's probably the best answer, if you could work through your local reps and bring it up. But I'm certainly on the interwebs if you want to reach out specifically to me, or we can have a side conversation. I'm here for part of the day today. So, okay, we're gonna last one, and then.
Can I go back to housing? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Now, my understanding was that between BFR and the Red Cross, it was a very sort of black and white box about who could get assistance for winter housing in the hotel motel program, or the government didn't want to set a precedent with other situations. Is that being relooked at, as the other situations are with no running water and freezing?
Sure. So with the Household Emergency Assistance Program, sure. With microphone. With the Household Emergency Assistance Program through Red Cross, there's certain conditions, requirements. We also receive funding for motels and hotels to support people being able to have a place to stay. It didn't meet everyone's needs, though. Some people need to be on their properties, whether they're animals or in some cases being in an RV beside their home. It's maybe not as comfortable as another situation, but being by your home is what we've heard is critical, right? So there's some issues that just haven't been worked out with that. I think what we'd want to look at is how do we have an adaptable framework that helps meet people's need and provides them resources where they're at, and whether there's some combination of different types of funding that can get there. We know that people right now are in the middle of trying to winterize RVs or sheds or get them ready, and we're looking at some other additional resources to help those
still be looked at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, ma'am.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone coming out today, and thanks for all your questions. And I just really want to send my kudos out to the community and how you pulled together and are working together, and again, working hand in hand with us in the province. Graham, we are grateful that you are helping us develop our new recovery framework, which is really critical for future events that we hope we don't have, but we realize that while you're struggling, that you're also helping, you're actually expending resources at helping us do a better job as the province and how we deal with recovery going forward. So thank you so much for that.